Throughout the thousands of years that modern humans have been a part of this world, one thing has remained true for all of those years: the need to feed ourselves. During the early Dark Ages, food was hunted and gathered with no capabilities for humanity to settle down. These hunters and gatherers spent the majority of their time alive hunting for food. This lack of time made scientific development very slow, making this section of human history one of the longest. In time, however, humans learned how to plant their own food, growing it where they were producing more than enough. With these agricultural advancements came a huge gap in days' time frame to develop new technologies in order to boost prestige among the other settlements. This excess began to attract others, who then had no reason to leave this newly founded society. The excess amounts of food that were being produced by the early farmers made them very wealthy. At the time, food served as a primary symbol of power and reputation because of the lack of common currency. The raiders popped up. Small bands of people would attack these other civilizations and steal their food. This quickly led to grow the development of weapons for more than simple hunting than big game. As these raiders grew in numbers, they also began to copy the settlement's weapons and armor, requiring more and more development from the settlement to stay ahead. This then resulted in the first early variations of the castle being formed.
The earliest variations of the castle included large mounds of earth, upon which lay stone walls surrounding the main buildings of these castles. Eventually moats were added as another layer of protection, and all the while these castles were getting larger and larger and larger, due to the increasing amount of wealth that had to be sheltered and protected. The Norman civilization, otherwise known as the Vikings, were the ones to pioneer the majority of the castle innovations and adaptations that hit the European world. The European world then adopted and threw on these twists as the mid-medieval era hit. These new European castles are where we'll be spending the rest of our time. This was the time upon which not the Renaissance that we are taught about occurs, but a smaller one, simply known as the 12th century Renaissance, or better known as the Gothic era.
Jumping ahead now to the 18th century, Gothic literature became a popular writing trope. It allowed for stories to be written about things that still existed before written history was very common, allowing for folk legends and popular myths to become true history, or at least what the common man believes to be true history. 1897 gave birth to the dark novel we know as Dracula, which perfectly depicts the feeling of the Gothic era. The story of Dracula is one that is well known, and the Gothic element of the castle is highlighted in true Gothic form as Dracula's castle. This is the most popular form of Gothic architecture in the eyes of the commoner, as the thoughts of Dracula bring up his Gothic castle and its dark halls and despair-filled chambers. The castle that Dracula was believed to be based on was Bran Castle. However, having never visited Castle Bran himself, Bram Stoker was able to create a very realistic and overall feeling of unease with his description of the castle. Due to him never visiting, there are some discontinuities between how the castle is described and how the true castle actually looks. Although he never visited the castle, Bram Stoker was able to depict the feeling of a castle strictly based on his personal vision, which added a feeling of uneasiness and gloom. Bran Castle is a national monument located in present-day Transylvania. The castle is a very traditional Gothic castle with all the trademark tall cylindrical red spires emerging from points in the stone wall. Castle Bran is surrounded by hundreds of acres of the dense forest, making the only logistically safe route for an invading army to approach was by the road, which was heavily defended with an illustrious gatehouse. The castle was known to imprison one of Transylvania's worst war criminals, Vlad the Impaler. It is believed that Vlad was one of the direct influences on Dracula and his character. To add a little bit of insight into Vlad the Impaler, he was known to completely eviscerate his victims as well as impale them with a long spear implanted in the ground, hence the name Vlad the Impaler. It is also due to Vlad's reputation as being almost like a devil spawn in his ruthless and tyrannical way of killing and looting settlements that Castle Bran has the reputation of being creepy and eerie. Gothic literature relied heavily on misinformation and lack of truth regarding the past. This allowed for stories like Dracula to pop up playing on folk legends and myths that will cause the audience to question their beliefs, and who knows whether they are true or not. All we can do is guess.